I am about to show you why sticking a couple of flimsy pillows under your swollen feet at night while popping a 6 p.m. prescription water pill is actually turning your lower legs into a stagnant, highly acidic swamp that is actively destroying your venous valves while you sleep, and how executing a specific, aggressive mechanical and biochemical sequence before you close your eyes is the only way to forcefully siphon that toxic fluid out of your tissue. We have been spoon-fed a catastrophic lie about how to manage nighttime swelling, and your vascular system is paying the agonizing price. Stay with me. For the next 35 minutes, we are going to completely dismantle everything the medical establishment has told you about resting your legs, elevating your feet, and treating peripheral edema at night. We are going to dive incredibly deep into the hardcore, terrifying mechanics of nocturnal hydrostatic pressure, the devastating failure of your biological trapdoors, the microscopic destruction of your endothelial barriers, and the brutal reality of why your doctor's obsession with forcing your kidneys to excrete water at night is putting your entire cardiovascular system in a dehydrating biological straitjacket. By the end of this masterclass, you will understand the exact physics of why your feet remain swollen even after 8 hours in bed, and you will have the aggressive, unyielding biological protocol to drain them permanently. Comment below if you spend your evenings dreading the feeling of your lower legs turning into tight, agonizing, overpressurized water balloons, making your skin feel like it is going to split open. Type DRAIN if you want the exact aggressive biological protocol to fix the root cause instead of suffering through another night of restless, throbbing misery. Let me tell you about Richard. Richard was 71 years old, and his nights were a living nightmare. By 7 p.m. every evening, his calves and ankles were massive, pitting blocks of fluid. They were heavy, they burned, and he suffered from vicious restless leg syndrome that made sleep nearly impossible. His primary care doctor, following the standard lazy medical playbook, gave him a heavy dose of a loop diuretic to take at dinner time and told him to sleep with his feet propped up. Richard was a disciplined man. He stacked 3 pillows under his heels and took his water pill exactly as prescribed. The result? He woke up 4 times a night to urinate, severely fracturing his sleep architecture, leaving his brain starved of deep-wave restorative sleep. And the most terrifying part? When he dragged himself out of bed the next morning, exhausted and dizzy, his ankles were still swollen. The fluid had simply shifted slightly from his ankles into his calves, but the heavy toxic sludge remained trapped in his tissue. His doctor told him this was just venous insufficiency and part of getting older. When I analyzed Richard's cellular chemistry and vascular physics, I saw a system that was fundamentally broken at the mechanical level. The diuretic was aggressively dehydrating his bloodstream, creating a viscous, abrasive sludge while doing absolutely nothing to pull the heavy, protein-rich fluid out of the interstitial space in his legs. We immediately threw the 6 p.m. water pill in the garbage. We completely restructured his evening routine to trigger massive lymphatic siphoning, restored his oncotic gradients, and deployed specific fibrinolytic enzymes to break up the stagnant tissue matrix. Within 2 weeks, Richard slept through the night. The restless burning evaporated. He woke up to ankles that looked like they belonged to a 40-year-old. He wasn't experiencing inevitable aging, he was the victim of profound biomechanical ignorance. To understand why Richard was suffering and why you wake up with thick, heavy ankles despite elevating them all night, we have to look at the brutal physics of your veins and something called bicuspid valve regurgitation. Your veins are not just hollow pipes. They are equipped with millions of microscopic one-way trapdoors called bicuspid valves. Because your feet are at the bottom of a gravity well, the blood has to be pushed violently upward against the force of gravity to get back to your heart. When your calf muscle pumps, it squeezes the vein, shooting the blood up. The trapdoor opens to let the blood pass and then immediately slams shut so the blood doesn't fall back down into your feet. But what happens after decades of a highly inflammatory diet, chronic sitting, and the loss of cellular elasticity? Those delicate, tissue paper-thin trapdoors become inflamed, scarred, and rigid. They stop closing properly. This is the catastrophe. When the trapdoor fails, the blood you just pumped upward falls right back down, crashing into the next valve. This creates massive localized high-pressure zones in the deep veins of your lower legs. This is venous hypertension. Now, let's look at what happens when you finally lie down in bed. You think you are relieving the pressure. You think gravity is finally your friend. But if those valves are blown out, lying horizontally just creates a giant stagnant pool. Yes, the active downward force of gravity is lessened, but you have lost the active pumping mechanism of your muscles because you are still. This brings us to the terrifying reality of the interstitial protein swamp. I want you to visualize your capillary bed. The arterial blood comes in, high pressure, pushing oxygen and nutrients out through the microscopic pores of the capillary wall to feed your tissue cells. The fluid surrounding those cells is called the interstitium. Now, normally, large molecules like albumin, the massive protein that acts as the oncotic magnet to pull fluid back into the vein, cannot fit through those pores. They stay in the blood, acting like a chemical vacuum to suck the wastewater back in. But when you have venous hypertension, when the blood is pooling and backing up because the trapdoors are broken, the physical pressure inside the capillary skyrockets. The capillary wall is stretched beyond its design limits. The microscopic pores tear open. This is called capillary hyperpermeability. And when those pores tear open, the massive albumin proteins escape. They flood out of the bloodstream and into the tissue of your ankles. This is a biological disaster. Why? Because albumin is a magnet for water. If the magnet is trapped in the tissue, it violently pulls the water out of the blood and holds it hostage in your flesh. This is why standard diuretics fail so spectacularly. When you take a diuretic before bed, it targets your kidneys. It forces your kidneys to pull water out of your circulating blood. It shrinks your blood volume, but it cannot touch the water trapped in your ankle tissue because the albumin magnet is holding it there. So you end up with dangerously dehydrated, concentrated blood, a thick sludge, while your ankles remain massively swollen. It is the definition of cellular starvation amidst a flood. Furthermore, let's talk about what this thick, dehydrated blood sludge does to you while you sleep. While you are sleeping, your heart rate drops. Your blood circulation slows down significantly. If your blood has been turned into a thick, abrasive syrup by a 6 p.m. water pill, it barely moves. This slow-moving sludge violently scrapes against the inside of your veins, specifically destroying the endothelial glycocalyx. The glycocalyx is the lush, microscopic, hair-like forest that coats the inside of your blood vessels. It is the biological bouncer that prevents inflammation and clotting. When this forest is clear-cut by the friction of dehydrated sludge, your body enters a state of panic. It triggers a massive inflammatory cascade right there in the lower legs. This inflammation causes the production of fibrin, a biological spider web that the body uses to heal wounds. But there is no open wound. Instead, this sticky fibrin web starts to encase the trapped fluid in your ankles. It cross-links with your fascial tissue. It turns the liquid swelling into a dense, gelatinous concrete. This is why, after months or years of swelling, the tissue in your lower legs feels hard, tight, and fibrotic. It is no longer just water. It is a chronically inflamed, protein-rich, fibrin-locked swamp. And what is the only system designed to clean up this swamp? The lymphatic system. Your lymphatic system is the biological sewer system of the body. It is specifically designed to vacuum up the large albumin proteins, the dead cells, and the fibrin debris that the veins cannot handle. But the lymphatic system has a fatal flaw. It has no heart. It has no central pump. It relies 100% on the mechanical kinetic energy of your muscles squeezing against your fascial tissue to push the toxic waste upward. When you go to sleep, you are paralyzed for 8 hours. Your muscles are offline. If you have not aggressively primed the lymphatic system before you get into bed, that heavy toxic fluid sits completely stagnant. And when lymphatic fluid sits stagnant, it rapidly becomes acidic. It begins to chemically burn the surrounding tissue. This localized acid burn is exactly what triggers the misfiring of your peripheral nerves, that excruciating burning sensation, the relentless twitching, the agonizing restless leg syndrome that keeps you pacing the floor at 2 a.m., that is not a mysterious neurological disease. That is your nerves screaming in agony as they are chemically burned by stagnant, acidic, concrete lymphatic fluid. You cannot fix this by simply throwing a pillow under your heels. You cannot fix this with a chemical water pill that turns your blood to sludge. We must systematically dismantle the fibrin concrete, restore the oncotic magnet, and force a massive mechanical siphoning of the lymphatic vessels right before you lose consciousness. Here is the exact, unyielding, aggressive biological protocol to drain your feet overnight. This is the masterclass bedtime routine. Step 1. The fibrinolytic matrix cleaver. We must dissolve the biological spiderwebs that are holding the fluid hostage in your tissue. 2 hours before bed, on a completely empty stomach, you must take a high-dose, specialized systemic enzyme. I specifically demand nattokinase or serrapeptase. These are highly aggressive, protein-digesting enzymes. When taken on an empty stomach, they bypass digestion, enter the bloodstream, and travel straight to the lower extremities. Once there, they act like biological machetes. They chop up the sticky fibrin webs. They break down the rogue proteins trapped in the interstitial tissue. By dissolving the structural matrix of the swelling, you instantly turn that hard, fibrotic concrete back into a free-flowing liquid that can actually be moved. Step 2. The transdermal osmotic glide. We must address the extreme, painful tightness of the fascial tissue and the smooth muscle spasm in the calves. Taking a magnesium pill is not enough, as it takes too long to reach the peripheral tissue and most of it is lost in the digestive tract. We are going to bypass the gut entirely. You must aggressively massage your lower legs with a specific mixture, 1 part pure concentrated magnesium chloride oil and 1 part organic cold-pressed hexane-free castor oil. Why this exact combination? Magnesium chloride acts as a localized chemical calcium channel blocker. When absorbed directly through the skin, it instantly uncouples the calcium, causing the relentless microspasms in your calf muscles, shutting down restless leg syndrome at the source. The castor oil is even more critical. Castor oil contains a unique, highly potent fatty acid called ricinoleic acid. When massaged into the skin, ricinoleic acid penetrates deep into the dermal layers and actively stimulates the lymphatic capillaries. It causes the microscopic lymphatic vessels to dilate and begin pulsing. You are chemically jump-starting the sewer system from the outside in. You must massage this mixture in deep upward strokes, starting from the ankle bone and pushing violently up toward the back of the knee. Step 3. The Soleus siphon protocol. We cannot rely on gravity alone to move the fluid once you lie down. We must create a massive mechanical vacuum before you get into bed. You are going to use your second heart, the soleus muscle that lies deep beneath your calf. Right next to your bed, before you get in, you must perform 3 minutes of aggressive, explosive seated calf raises. Sit on the edge of the bed. Plant the balls of your feet on the floor. Now, violently drive your knees upward by flexing your calves. You want a sharp, rapid contraction, not a slow stretch. This specific, explosive contraction does something extraordinary. It violently squeezes the deep soleal veins, shooting the pooled blood upward. But more importantly, the sudden relaxation phase creates a massive negative pressure vacuum in the deep tissue. It literally sucks the fluid out of the interstitial spaces and forces it into the lymphatic channels. You are manually pumping the swamp dry just moments before your body goes into paralyzed sleep mode. Step 4. The pre-sleep hydroosmotic primer. The biggest mistake you can make is dehydrating yourself before bed to avoid urinating. If your blood is thick sludge, it cannot absorb the fluid from your legs, but drinking plain water will just flush through your kidneys. We must create an electrical gradient. 30 minutes before bed, you will drink exactly 4 ounces of water, no more. But into this water, you must dissolve a heavy pinch of unrefined, hand-harvested Celtic sea salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of potassium citrate powder. This is not about volume, it is about pure osmotic pressure. The 80+ trace minerals in the sea salt, combined with the intracellular power of potassium, create an intensely concentrated electrical charge in your blood. As this hypermineralized blood slowly circulates into your lower legs, it acts as a chemical tractor beam. It forcefully pulls the water out of your swollen cells and back into the vascular compartment, replacing the lost albumin magnet. The fluid is now safely housed inside the veins, where it can be gently filtered by the kidneys overnight without triggering a frantic diuretic dump. Step 5. The 45-degree fascial decompression wedge. Do not ever put a standard soft pillow under your heels. When you put a pillow under your feet, you create a sharp, mechanical hinge point at your knee. You are literally kinking the popliteal vein, the massive vein running behind your knee. You are blocking the highway. The fluid makes it out of your calf and then smashes into a roadblock at the back of your knee, causing massive pressure and pain. You must use a firm, dense foam wedge that supports the entire posterior chain of the leg. The elevation must begin at the upper thigh and create a smooth, uninterrupted 45-degree ramp all the way down to the heel. There can be zero bend, zero kinking, and zero pressure points behind the knee. By creating a smooth, unobstructed gravitational highway, the fluid that we have just chemically released, enzymatically dissolved, and mechanically pumped can effortlessly flow back to the heart while you sleep. You have been gaslit into believing that heavy, swollen, agonizing legs are just your cross to bear as you age. I am telling you that it is a biomechanical failure allowed to persist by a medical system that treats you like a generic math problem rather than a complex biological machine. Stop letting them chemically dehydrate you while your tissue drowns in acidic waste. Dissolve the fibrin, stimulate the lymphatics, fire the soleus siphon, create the osmotic gradient, reclaim the elasticity and the peace of your nights. I'm Dr. Amelia Carter. I'll see you in the next video.